This shows how to carve an 8-pointed star. This actually is one of the easiest things a person can carve. So what you do is you start with a square of wood. This one is 2 inches square, and you mark each side like this one is marked, with a line that runs from down the middle, across the other middle, and then from point to point and point to point. So then what you do is, from this piece here in the middle, you use the center of your blade and make a stop cut. I have found the X-Acto knife works best because it's razor sharp to make either stop cuts or these cuts, the plunge cuts. Then what you do is take your knife, and you never want to cut towards yourself. You should always cut away from yourself. That is safer. I imagine most carvers already know that, but I mention it for the few who is new to carving and hasn't yet learned that. So you cut that way, turn this so you keep cutting away from yourself, cut out a piece, make another plunge cut, a little bit deeper, carve away from yourself, turn it so you can keep cutting away from yourself, and you continue until all of this area here has been removed, all of this area here. You're removing that section, and you continue on until you have done each one of these sections that way, removing all of that. And when you're done, you will have a lovely 8-pointed star. I'm in the process of making a ball, carving a ball into the star that I've started. This is an 8-point star, which is very simple to make an 8-point star. It's one of the simplest things a carver can start with, and I highly recommend it. So to carve the ball in the star, what I'm doing so far is I've marked the wood like so in diamond shapes. And then what you do is, on each one of those, I've started one here, you very carefully make a score cut. You score it, and then you go over that again several times so it gets deeper and deeper a cut, and then it becomes a stop cut. And after you do that, you remove part of the wood like I've done here, and then after you remove some of it, you go back over the lines again several times so you can get a deeper cut, and then remove another layer and repeat that process. The way I've marked this, because I started with a 2-inch square of basswood. So the railings, I measured 3/16 of an inch from the edge. I use a quilter's ruler because they're clear and you can see through them, and they're great for woodworking projects. So eventually, what I'm going to have is all the wood will be removed from each one of these points, because when I remove it on each side, I'll end up with that hollowed out. After that's finished, then basically what you do is you hold it like that to where it was a square, and you look at it and you visualize where the ball would be, and you start carving out a ball in this. This is how far I have gotten on my ball and a star. What I'm doing is I take the X-Acto knife because I believe it's sharper, and each one of these diamond sections, I turn it like so, and right across, not down not down in the middle, but as like the pyramid, I'm going straight across like this to create a stop cut. I go over it several times at the base, straight across this way, instead of down in, not down in, but across like I would be cutting under a pyramid. And I go over these lines over and over to make a deeper stop cut. And I do that on all three sides of the point. And then I have a gouge that works great. It's a 5mm, so it's not very wide, and it's a number 9 sweep, which tells how deep the U is what the sweep is. And I use that to gouge out the area, and I keep working on that until I have a point completely hollowed out, like that one is. I'm doing that on each point, and when I'm done, I have an area left in the middle, and with that area that's left, I'm going to basically visualize a ball and carve it into a ball. And then after I get it almost completely shaped like I would like, then it's just like working with a ball in a cage. Then you release it from its rails, and then you continue getting it a little rounder, and after that it's simply a matter of sanding it very well, and then your ball in a cage would be finished. But I will be back to show it as I get it farther along. So far what I've got done is I've removed all of the excess wood from each of the pointed areas. Now what I have left is a kind of diamond shaped piece of wood. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head and before I actually shape the ball, I'm going to take and right where it connects to the rails, I'm going to make a cut and then go to the other edge of it, cut again, keep turning it, and cut that on all 4 sides, being as best careful as I can be not to break these rails. And then on the 4th side, and cut down a little, and very carefully try to remove a little section off of that, and then continue on doing that at each place where it connects to the railings. These railings on a 2-inch square is really thin. It was only 3/16 of an inch. And this being basswood, that's a softwood, so that also makes it a problem. I recommend that anybody who wants to try this, I recommend you use butternut, perhaps. I've used butternut before in a ball in a cage, and it's a little harder than the basswood, but I still like working with it much better. But so far, this is still turning out reasonably well, and I'm having hopes that I can get it done. When I started this project, I had only seen a picture that somebody had posted in this group around a year ago, and I was very new to carving, but I was completely intrigued by the picture of this, and I just knew one day I'd want to try this, and I'm glad I have. But to be honest, I'm only going by a picture, so I am figuring this out as I go along. And I thought, since I'm doing this anyway, I would go ahead and videotape it in hopes that it might help anyone else that wanted to do this. I got the ball and a star finished. It is more difficult than a ball in a cage, but it can be done. After doing this one, I recommend that anybody that wants to try this use a square that's 3 inches at the least, and better a 4-inch square. I used a 2-inch square, and the rails are so thin that it's just so risky that they're going to break, especially if one uses basswood because it's such a soft wood. When I took and cut and released the wood from the rails, each time I cut right under the rails, every place I cut a little layer off the top of the wood in the same place. And then, like, I cut here to remove it from the rails, and then I went down on top of the wood and removed a little piece on top of that. And by the time I did that, it was already in a ball shape. It just needed trimming up.